Shalom Aleichem. My name is Joey, and you've reached the Yoke of Messiah YouTube channel. Thanks so much for stopping by. I'm actually participating in a project my sister came up with. She wanted different people to read one of the first 15 chapters of Exodus and then string them all together on a Facebook feed so that you could just tab through each one and actually hear them read aloud. Excuse me. Good thing I'm getting that out of the way now. My chapter was chapter 14, and I'll go ahead and read it for you, and we'll discuss briefly why I wanted to read that one at the end. Exodus chapter 14. The Lord spoke to Moses, saying, Speak to the children of Israel, and let them turn back and encamp in front of Pi Hahiroth, between Migdol and the sea, in front of Baal Zephon. You shall encamp opposite it by the sea. And Pharaoh will say about the children of Israel, They are trapped in the land. The desert has closed in upon them. And I will harden Pharaoh's heart, and he will pursue them. And I will be glorified through Pharaoh and through this entire force. And the Egyptians will know that I am the Lord. And they did so. It was reported to Pharaoh that the children of Israel had fled, and Pharaoh and his servants had a change of heart towards the people, and they said, What is this that we have done, that we have released Israel from serving us? So he, Pharaoh, harnessed his chariot and took his people with him. He took 600 select chariots and all the chariots of Egypt, with the officers over them all. And the Lord hardened the heart of Pharaoh, the king of Egypt, and he chased after the children of Israel. And the children of Israel were marching out triumphantly. The Egyptians, excuse me, the Egyptians chased after them and overtook them and camped by the sea. Every horse of Pharaoh's chariots, his horsemen, and his force, besides Pi Hahiroth, in front of Baal Zephon. Pharaoh drew near, and the children of Israel lifted up their eyes, and behold, the Egyptians were advancing after them. They were very frightened, and the children of Israel cried out to the Lord. They said to Moses, Is it because there are no graves in Egypt that you have taken us out to die in this desert? What is this that you have done to us to take us out of Egypt? Isn't this the thing about which we spoke to you in Egypt, saying, Leave us alone, and we will serve the Egyptians, because we would rather serve the Egyptians than die in the desert? Moses said to the people, Don't be afraid. Stand firm and see the Lord's salvation that he will wreak for you today. For the way you have seen the Egyptians is only today, but you shall no longer continue to see them for eternity. The Lord will fight for you, but you shall remain silent. The Lord said to Moses, Why do you cry out to me? Speak to the children of Israel and let them travel. And you raise your staff and stretch out your hand over the sea and split it. And the children of Israel shall come in the midst of the sea on dry land. And I, behold, I shall harden the hearts of the Egyptians, and they will come after you, and I will be glorified through Pharaoh, and through all his force, through his chariots, and through his horsemen. And the Egyptians shall know that I am the Lord, when I will be glorified through Pharaoh, through his chariots, and through his horsemen. And the angel of God, who had been going in front of the Israelite camp, moved and went behind them, the Israelite camp, and the pillar of cloud moved away from in front of them and stood behind them. And he came between the camp of Egypt and the camp of Israel. And there were the cloud and the darkness, and it illuminated the night, and one did not draw near to the other all night long. And Moses stretched out his hand over the sea, and the Lord led the sea with the strong east wind all night. And he made the sea into dry land, and the waters split. The children of Israel came into the midst of the sea on dry land, and the waters were to them as a wall on their right and on their left. The Egyptians pursued and came after them, all of Pharaoh's horses, his chariots, and his horsemen, into the midst of the sea. It came about in the morning watch that the Lord looked down over the Egyptian camp through a pillar of fire and cloud, and he threw the Egyptian camp into confusion. And he removed the wheels of their chariots, and he led them with heaviness. And the Egyptians said, "Let me run away from the Israelites, because the Lord is fighting for them against the Egyptians." Thereupon the Lord said to Moses, "Stretch out your hand over the sea, and let the water return upon the Egyptians, upon their chariots, and upon their horsemen." So Moses stretched out his hand over the sea, and toward morning the sea returned to its strength, as the Egyptians were fleeing toward it, and the Lord stirred the Egyptians into the sea. And the waters returned and covered the chariots and the horsemen, the entire force of Pharaoh coming after them into the sea. Not even one of them survived. But the children of Israel went on dry land in the midst of the sea, and the water was to them like a wall from their right and from their left. On that day, the Lord saved Israel from the hands of the Egyptians, and Israel saw the Egyptians dying on the seashore. And Israel saw the great hand with which the Lord had used upon the Egyptians. And the people feared the Lord, and they believed in the Lord and in Moses, his servant. That's the end of the chapter, and you can go ahead and click the link to the next chapter if you'd like. I'm just going to take a moment and say why I was very thankful that I was able to get chapter 14. I'm kind of a student of and kind of fixated upon a little bit anytime that the uh, character, the angel of the Lord, appears in the scriptures. And there's many different theories. Is it an angel? Is it a messenger of God? Is it God Himself in an angelic form? And at least through looking at these scriptures where it said the angel of the Lord dwelled in the fire that was with um, Israel as they were being led out. And in chapter 25, I'm sorry, verse 25, I believe it was. Let's see. No, I'm sorry. Verse 24, it says, "It came about in the morning watch that the Lord looked down over the Egyptian camp through the pillar of fire and cloud." So we're seeing the angel of the Lord, a representative of Hashem. And then it says Hashem himself looked down over the Egyptian camp through that pillar of fire and cloud. And this is one of the hinge-pin scriptures that personally leads me to believe that just like when they're at Sinai and they are all having the big meal, and the elders, leaders of Israel look up and they see the feet of Hashem standing on the sapphire pavement, to me, this is an appearance of Hashem in the scriptures. And it is my personal belief that these are appearances of the Messiah in the scriptures, predating what we know to be the Brit Hadashah, or the New Testament as it is called. And that Mashiach, Yeshua, has always been with Israel, and he has always been present and saving uh, and doing a holy work. And so it certainly appears to me from verse 24 that that angel of the Lord was actually Hashem himself, and that Hashem and the angel of the Lord appear to be one because they are in the cloud of fire together, and they're looking down on the plight of the Egyptian camp through the pillar of fire and cloud. So just my personal belief, I believe that this is the body of God, which I personally believe Yeshua, Jesus, is the Messiah and that he is God incarnate. And this is just a further understanding of him interacting with the physical world through a physical body, Hashem himself in the person of the angel of the Lord or the Mashiach, uh, interacting with the personal world, personally with the physical world, to have a real relationship and intervene on the people's behalf. So it is not my belief that there are many gods. It is my belief there is one God and that he can present himself in a manifold ways, whether it be the fire uh, of the burning bush, or whether it be the angel of the Lord, or whether it be the feet standing on the sapphire pavement at Sinai, or the Mashiach himself, my belief being Yeshua, Jesus being the Mashiach. So thanks again so much for listening, and be sure to click on the links in this post, at least this Facebook post, that will lead you to the next reader or the one that came before me, and you can chain through all these. And I hope that it's been as big a blessing to you as to hear this as it has been for me to be able to participate in it. So I hope you have a wonderful Pesach, Hag Sameach Pesach, and a wonderful time of unleavened bread with much rest over those two Shabbats, and just altogether wonderful Pesach season 2020, of course, corresponding to 5780. Shalom Aleichem.